Sarah Mitchell wiped the sweat from her forehead as she guided her horse along the dusty trail that wound through the Texas plains. The sun beat down mercilessly on this scorching afternoon in 1847, and she was already regretting her decision to venture so far from the settlement alone. But her sick neighbor's children needed medicine, and the nearest doctor was 3 days' ride away in San Antonio. At 26 years old, Sarah had learned to be self-sufficient after losing her husband to fever 2 winters ago. She ran a small trading post on the edge of civilization, where she sold supplies to travelers and occasionally provided medical care with the herbs and remedies she'd learned from her grandmother. The frontier was no place for a woman alone, everyone told her, but Sarah had proven them wrong time and again. Her horse Belle suddenly stopped and snorted nervously. Sarah looked ahead and saw why. The trail split around a marshy area fed by an underground spring. The recent rains had turned it into a treacherous bog. She was debating which path to take when she heard it, a desperate cry for help echoing across the wetland. Sarah shaded her eyes and scanned the area. About 50 yards away, near what looked like solid ground but was clearly a quicksand trap, she saw someone struggling. A young man, probably in his early 20s, was sinking slowly but steadily into the muddy sand. He was calling out in a language she didn't recognize, his voice growing more panicked with each passing moment. Without hesitation, Sarah dismounted and grabbed her rope from the saddle. She had no idea who this person was or where he came from, but she couldn't stand by and watch someone die. As she got closer, she could see he was dressed differently than the settlers she knew. His clothes were made of buckskin, decorated with intricate beadwork, and his long black hair was braided with feathers and small bones. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt. This was a Comanche warrior. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she prepared her rope. Relations between the settlers and the Comanche had been tense for years. There had been raids, stolen cattle, and violence on both sides. Many of her neighbors would tell her to turn around and leave this man to his fate. Some might even say it would be one less threat to worry about, but looking at his terrified face as he sank deeper into the quicksand, Sarah saw only another human being in desperate need of help. Her conscience wouldn't let her walk away, regardless of who he was or what tribe he belonged to. The young man had sunk up to his chest now, and his struggles were only making things worse. Sarah called out to him, trying to get his attention. When he looked at her, she could see the surprise in his dark eyes. He probably expected her to flee in terror, or maybe even watch him die with satisfaction. Instead, Sarah began forming a lasso with her rope. She had practiced this countless times when helping her late husband with the cattle. Her hands moved with practiced precision despite her racing heart. She knew she would only get one good throw. If she missed, the man might sink too deep for the rope to reach him. Taking careful aim, Sarah threw the lasso. It sailed through the air and landed perfectly around the man's shoulders and under his arms. She quickly secured her end of the rope around a sturdy tree trunk nearby, then began the careful process of pulling him free. Quicksand doesn't give up its victims easily. Sarah had to work slowly and steadily, allowing the sand to gradually release its grip. The young man seemed to understand what she was doing and stopped struggling, letting her guide the rescue. It took nearly an hour of patient work, but finally she managed to pull him onto solid ground. The Comanche warrior lay on the grass, breathing heavily and covered in mud. Sarah approached cautiously, offering him her water canteen. He looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and confusion, as if he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. She helped him sit up and checked him for injuries. Aside from some scrapes and exhaustion, he seemed to be unharmed. As he cleaned the mud from his face, Sarah got her first clear look at him. He was young, probably no more than 22 or 23, with intelligent eyes and strong features. Despite the circumstances, there was a dignity about him that commanded respect. The young man spoke to her in his native language, his tone respectful and grateful. When Sarah shook her head to indicate she didn't understand, he switched to broken English. "You save me," he said slowly, placing his hand over his heart. Why? Sarah considered the question. Why had she risked her own safety to save someone who could potentially be an enemy? The answer came to her simply and honestly. "Because it was the right thing to do," she replied. The warrior studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to understand this white woman who had defied everything he might have expected. Then he reached into a pouch at his belt and pulled out a small carved piece of turquoise shaped like a bird. He pressed it into Sarah's palm. Gift, he said in English. For life debt. Sarah tried to refuse the gift, but the young man insisted. She could see this was important to him, so she accepted it graciously. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while as he regained his strength. As the sun began to sink lower in the sky, the warrior stood up. He was steady on his feet now, though still muddy and disheveled. He pointed to himself and said clearly, "Ayana." Sarah pointed to herself. "Sarah," Ayana nodded and repeated her name carefully. Then he gestured toward the western hills and spoke again in his native language before translating, "Must go home." Sarah nodded her understanding. She watched as he began walking toward the hills, but after a few steps he turned back to look at her one more time. There was something in his expression that she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, certainly, but something deeper too. As Ayana disappeared into the distance, Sarah mounted Belle and continued on her journey to get medicine for her neighbor's children. She tucked the turquoise bird safely into her pocket, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was far from over. What she didn't know was that Ayana wasn't just any Comanche warrior. He was the beloved son of Chief Red Wolf, one of the most powerful leaders among the Comanche bands. And among his people, a life debt was not something taken lightly. Sarah completed her journey to San Antonio and returned to her trading post 3 days later with the medicine her neighbor's children desperately needed. She tried to put the encounter with the Comanche warrior out of her mind, but found herself frequently touching the turquoise bird in her pocket. Something about those intelligent dark eyes haunted her thoughts. Life at the trading post continued as usual. Travelers stopped by for supplies, and Sarah treated minor injuries and illnesses with her herbal remedies. She mentioned the rescue to no one, knowing it would only cause panic among the settlers. The frontier communities were already on edge about Comanche raids, and news that she had helped one of their warriors would not be well received. A week passed peacefully. Sarah was tending her small vegetable garden behind the trading post when she noticed something strange. Her chickens, usually calm and content, were agitated and making nervous clucking sounds. Belle, grazing nearby, had raised her head and was staring intently toward the tree line. Sarah straightened up and followed her horse's gaze. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Then, like shadows materializing from the forest, she began to make out figures moving among the trees. Her heart started pounding as she realized what she was seeing. Comanche warriors, at least a dozen of them, were positioned at the edge of her property. They sat motionless on their horses, watching her. The late afternoon sun glinted off their weapons and the decorative metal ornaments in their clothing. It was both beautiful and terrifying. Sarah's first instinct was to run inside the trading post and bar the door, but something stopped her. These warriors could have attacked already if that was their intention. Instead, they were simply observing her, as if waiting for something. As she stood frozen in her garden, one of the riders separated from the group and rode slowly toward her. Sarah's breath caught in her throat when she recognized him. It was Ayana, the young man she had pulled from the quicksand. But he looked very different now. Gone were the mud-stained clothes and desperate expression. He was magnificently dressed in finest buckskin decorated with intricate beadwork, silver ornaments, and eagle feathers. He carried himself with the bearing of nobility. Ayana stopped his horse about 20 feet from Sarah and dismounted. He approached her slowly, his hands visible and empty of weapons. When he spoke, his English was much clearer than it had been at their first meeting. "Sarah Mitchell," he said, pronouncing her name carefully. "I have come to speak with you." Sarah found her voice, though it came out shakier than she would have liked. "How do you know my full name?" I asked questions. "People in settlement talk about woman who runs trading post alone. They say you are stubborn but fair. They say you help anyone who needs healing." Sarah glanced nervously at the other warriors still positioned at the tree line. "What do you want from me?" Ayana followed her gaze and seemed to understand her fear. He called out something in Comanche, and the other warriors relaxed their posture slightly, though they remained watchful. "They will not hurt you," Ayana assured her. "I gave my word. But they come because of who I am." "And who are you exactly?" Ayana straightened with obvious pride. "I am Ayana, son of Chief Red Wolf of the Noconi Comanche." "What you did, saving my life. This creates sacred bond between us. Life debt that must be honored." Sarah felt her legs go weak. She had saved the son of a Comanche chief. No wonder there were so many warriors with him. The implications of this situation were staggering. "I don't understand," she managed to say. "I just did what anyone should do." "You don't owe me anything." Ayana shook his head firmly. "In my culture, life debt is most serious thing. You risked your safety to save enemy. This shows great courage and honor. My father wishes to meet woman who saved his son." "Your father? The chief?" "Yes, he comes tomorrow at sunset. He brings gifts to honor you. This is great ceremony for my people." Sarah's mind raced. A Comanche chief coming to her trading post would cause absolute panic in the settlement. If word got out, there could be violence. The settlers might think she was collaborating with the enemy. "Ayana, I appreciate the honor, but this is very dangerous. My people and your people, we don't trust each other. If the settlers see a Comanche war party here, they'll think you're planning an attack. This is why I come first. To prepare. To make sure there is no misunderstanding." Ayana reached into his pouch and pulled out a beautifully crafted necklace made of turquoise, silver, and small animal bones. "This belonged to my grandmother. My father sends it as token of respect. He wants you to wear it tomorrow to show you are under our protection." Sarah stared at the necklace. It was stunning, clearly very valuable and significant, but accepting it would mean accepting the chief's visit and all the complications that would come with it. "What if I refuse?" she asked quietly. Ayana looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "Why would you refuse?" "This is great honor. My father is respected chief. Many tribes seek his friendship." "Because I'm afraid," Sarah admitted. "I'm afraid of what my people will think. I'm afraid of getting caught between two worlds that are at war with each other." Ayana considered her words carefully. "You were not afraid when you saved my life. You did not think of tribes or war. You saw a person who needed help." He was right, and Sarah knew it. She had acted on instinct and conscience then, not considering the consequences. Maybe that was the person she needed to be now. "If I agree to meet with your father, can you promise me something?" "What do you wish?" "Promise me this will be peaceful. No weapons drawn, no threatening gestures. I need to be able to tell my neighbors honestly that this was a meeting of respect, not aggression." Ayana nodded solemnly. "I give you my word. My father comes in peace." "But Sarah..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You must understand. Among Comanche, life debt is sacred. My father will want to offer you protection, place you under our tribe's care." Sarah's eyes widened. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means no Comanche will ever harm you. It means if you are in trouble, you can call on us for help. It means you become, how do you say, like family to us." The weight of this revelation settled on Sarah's shoulders. She was being offered something unprecedented, the protection and friendship of a powerful Comanche chief. But such an alliance would forever change her relationship with her own people. As if reading her thoughts, Ayana added softly, "Great honors often come with great challenges. My father understands this. He will not force you to accept, but he must offer it. His honor demands it." Sarah took the necklace from Ayana's hands. The turquoise was warm from his touch, and the craftsmanship was exquisite. Wearing this tomorrow would mark her as someone special to the Comanche, but it might also mark her as a traitor to the settlers. "Tell your father I will meet with him," she said finally. "But I need to prepare my neighbors. I need to make sure they understand this is about honor, not war." Ayana smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. "You are a wise woman, Sarah Mitchell. My father will be pleased." As he mounted his horse and rejoined his warriors, Sarah wondered what she had just agreed to. Tomorrow would bring either the beginning of an extraordinary friendship or the end of life as she knew it. Sarah spent a sleepless night wrestling with her decision. By dawn, she had made up her mind about how to handle the situation. She would need allies among the settlers, people who trusted her judgment enough to prevent panic when Chief Red Wolf arrived. Her first stop was the homestead of Thomas and Margaret Henderson, the couple whose children she had recently helped with medicine. Thomas was a level-headed man who served as an unofficial leader in their small community. If anyone would listen to reason, it would be him. Sarah found Thomas mending his fence while Margaret hung laundry nearby. Both looked up with friendly smiles when she approached, but their expressions quickly changed to concern when they saw her serious demeanor. "Thomas, Margaret, I need to speak with you about something very important," Sarah began. "What I'm about to tell you might sound unbelievable, but I need you to trust me." She told them everything: the rescue at the Quicksand, Ayana's identity, and the planned meeting with Chief Red Wolf. Thomas's face grew increasingly grave as she spoke, while Margaret clutched her apron nervously. "Sweet Lord Sarah," Thomas said when she finished, "do you realize what you've gotten yourself into? This could start a war. Or it could prevent one," Sarah replied. "Thomas, this chief is offering me protection. That means he's offering friendship. When was the last time the Comanche made a peaceful overture to any of us?" Margaret spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. "But what if it's a trap? What if they're using you to get close to the settlement?" Sarah had considered this possibility, but something in Ayana's demeanor convinced her otherwise. "I don't think so." The way he spoke about the life debt, about honor, it felt genuine. And if they wanted to attack us, they wouldn't need an elaborate deception. They could have done it already. Thomas was quiet for a long moment, clearly thinking through the implications. Finally, he nodded slowly. "What do you need from us?" "I need you to help me talk to the other families. If people see a group of Comanche approaching my trading post and don't know what's happening, they might react with violence. That would destroy any chance of peace." "How many will be coming?" Margaret asked. "I don't know exactly. Ayana mentioned it would be a ceremonial party, so probably several warriors along with the chief." Thomas rubbed his beard thoughtfully. "We'll need to post lookouts, make sure everyone stays calm. Maybe position some of our men where they can watch but stay hidden, just in case." Sarah appreciated his practical approach. "Just remember, any show of aggression could ruin everything. These people are coming in peace." They spent the morning visiting each homestead in the area, explaining the situation. The reactions varied widely. Some families were terrified and wanted to pack up and leave immediately. Others were angry, feeling that Sarah had endangered them all by helping a Comanche warrior. But a few, like the Hendersons, saw the potential for something positive. Old Pete Sullivan, a former soldier who lived alone near the creek, was surprisingly supportive. "I've fought the Comanche," he told Sarah. "They're fierce fighters, but they're honorable too. If their chief gives his word, he'll keep it. This might be the best chance we'll ever have for peace in these parts." By afternoon, Sarah had managed to convince most of her neighbors to remain calm and give the meeting a chance. She returned to her trading post to prepare. She cleaned her modest cabin thoroughly, set out her best dishes, and prepared coffee and cornbread to offer her guests. As sunset approached, Sarah put on her finest dress, a simple blue cotton gown that had belonged to her mother, and carefully fastened Ayana's grandmother's necklace around her throat. The turquoise felt heavy against her skin, a tangible reminder of the momentous step she was taking. She had just stepped outside when she heard the sound of approaching horses. From the western hills, a procession emerged that took her breath away. Chief Red Wolf rode at the front, and even at a distance his presence was commanding. He was a large man, probably in his 50s, with silver-streaked hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute authority. Behind him rode Ayana and what appeared to be other important members of the tribe. They were all magnificently dressed in their finest regalia, buckskins decorated with intricate beadwork, silver ornaments that caught the setting sun, and elaborate headdresses. It was both beautiful and intimidating. The procession approached slowly, giving Sarah time to study Chief Red Wolf. His face was weathered and stern, marked by years of leadership and warfare. But when his eyes met hers, she saw intelligence and curiosity rather than hostility. The chief dismounted about 10 feet from Sarah and walked toward her with measured steps. When he was close enough to speak, he stopped and studied her carefully. His gaze lingered on the turquoise necklace she wore, and she saw a flicker of approval in his eyes. "Sarah Mitchell," he said in heavily accented but clear English. "I am Red Wolf, chief of the Noconi Comanche. You saved the life of my son." Sarah inclined her head respectfully. "Chief Red Wolf, you honor me with your presence. Your son is a brave man. I only did what I hope anyone would do in such circumstances." The chief's stern expression softened slightly. "Not anyone would risk their life for enemy. This shows great courage and greater heart." He gestured to the warriors behind him. "I bring gifts to honor your deed." 2 warriors came forward carrying beautifully woven blankets, a silver bracelet inlaid with turquoise, and what appeared to be a ceremonial knife in an ornate sheath. Sarah was overwhelmed by the generosity and obvious value of these gifts. "Chief Red Wolf, these are too generous. I cannot accept such valuable things." The chief held up his hand. "Among my people, gift must match importance of deed. You gave my son his life. No gift can truly equal this, but we offer what we can. Ayanna stepped forward and spoke to his father in Comanche. The chief nodded and replied, then turned back to Sarah. My son tells me you understand danger this meeting brings. You risk anger of your people to show respect to mine. This also shows courage. Sarah chose her words carefully. Chief Red Wolf, I believe that understanding between our peoples is possible. There has been too much blood, too much fear on both sides. Perhaps we can find a different path. The chief studied her face intently. You speak of peace, but your people take our land, kill our buffalo, break promises made in treaties. Sarah knew he was right about the broken promises and encroachment on Comanche territory. I cannot speak for all white people, just as you cannot speak for all Comanche bands, but I can speak for myself. I want to live in peace with my neighbors, all of them. Chief Red Wolf was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of authority and tradition. Sarah Mitchell, by saving my son's life, you have created sacred bond. I offer you protection of my tribe. You will be as daughter to me, sister to my son. No Comanche will harm you. If you are in danger, we will come to your aid. The significance of this moment was not lost on Sarah. She was being offered something that no other white person in this region had ever received, the formal protection and adoption of a powerful Comanche chief. Chief Red Wolf, I am deeply honored by your offer. I accept your protection and your friendship. In return, I promise that my trading post will always be a place of peace where your people are welcome. The chief smiled for the first time since arriving. It is good. We will smoke the peace pipe now and make this bond official in the eyes of the Great Spirit. The peace pipe ceremony was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Chief Red Wolf produced an ornately carved pipe made from red stone, its bowl decorated with silver inlays and adorned with eagle feathers. As the sun set behind them, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, the chief filled the pipe with sacred tobacco and herbs. The ritual was conducted with great solemnity. Chief Red Wolf lit the pipe and offered smoke to the four directions, then to the sky and earth, speaking prayers in Comanche. He took several draws and then offered it to Sarah. She hesitated, unsure of the proper protocol, but Ayanna gave her an encouraging nod. When Sarah took the pipe, she felt the weight of tradition and ceremony. The smoke was sweet and aromatic, different from any tobacco she had encountered. She tried to copy the chief's actions, offering smoke to each direction as she had seen him do. Chief Red Wolf watched approvingly and spoke what sounded like a blessing. It is done, he said when the ceremony was complete. You are now under protection of the Noconi Comanche. This bond cannot be broken by man. As the warriors began to mount their horses for the journey home, Chief Red Wolf placed his hand on Sarah's shoulder. You will see us again. When seasons change and we return to winter camps, we will bring gifts and trade with you. Your trading post will become bridge between our worlds. After the Comanche party disappeared into the gathering darkness, Sarah stood alone in her yard, still wearing the turquoise necklace and holding the ceremonial gifts. The magnitude of what had just occurred was overwhelming. She had formed an alliance that could change everything for the small frontier community. Over the following weeks, word of the meeting spread throughout the territory. Reactions were mixed and intense. Some settlers were outraged, claiming Sarah had endangered them all by fraternizing with the enemy. A few families even packed up their belongings and moved further east, away from what they saw as impending danger. But others recognized the potential benefits of her new relationship with the Comanche. Thomas Henderson proved to be her strongest supporter, arguing at community meetings that peace was preferable to constant fear of raids. Sarah's done something none of us had the courage to do, he told a gathering of settlers. She's opened a door to communication with these people. Maybe now we can find ways to coexist instead of constantly looking over our shoulders. The proof of the alliance's value came sooner than anyone expected. 3 weeks after the ceremony, a band of Lipan Apache warriors appeared in the area, clearly intent on raiding the isolated homesteads. The Apache were traditional enemies of both the Comanche and the white settlers, and their presence threatened everyone in the region. Sarah first learned of the Apache threat when young Billy Henderson came racing to her trading post on horseback, his face flushed with excitement and fear. Miss Sarah, he called out breathlessly, Pa says to tell you there's Apache war paint spotted near Willow Creek. They think it's a raiding party, maybe a dozen warriors. Sarah's blood ran cold. Apache raiders were known for their stealth and brutality. The scattered homesteads would be easy targets, especially with most of the men out working their fields. She made a decision that would have seemed impossible just a month ago. "Billy, ride to the Hendersons and tell your father to gather all the families at the church. It's the most defensible building we have." She paused, then added, "And Billy, tell him I'm going to call for help." The boy looked confused. "Call for help from who, Miss Sarah?" "The nearest cavalry post is 5 days away." "From our allies," Sarah replied simply. After Billy rode off, Sarah went to her cabin and retrieved something she had hoped never to use, a special whistle that Ayanna had given her before leaving. It was carved from an eagle's bone and made a unique, piercing sound that could carry for miles. He had told her to use it only in the most desperate circumstances, when she needed immediate help from the Comanche. Sarah climbed onto the roof of her trading post and blew the whistle 3 times, pausing between each call as Ayanna had instructed. The sound echoed across the plains, sharp and clear in the evening air. Then she waited, praying that someone would hear and understand the signal. Less than an hour later, she heard the thunder of approaching horses. From the western hills came a sight that filled her with both relief and amazement. Ayanna led a group of 20 Comanche warriors, all painted for war and armed with rifles, bows, and lances. They rode with the fluid grace of people born in the saddle, covering ground at incredible speed. Ayanna dismounted and approached Sarah, his face grim with concern. The eagle whistle called, and we answered. "What danger threatens our sister?" Sarah quickly explained about the Apache raiding party and the vulnerable settlers gathered at the church. Ayanna translated for his warriors, and she could see the determination in their faces. The Apache were enemies to the Comanche as well, and they would not hesitate to fight them. "We will find these Apache and drive them away," Ayanna declared. "Your people will be safe. Ayanna, please be careful. I don't want anyone to die because of me." The young warrior smiled grimly. "Sarah, you are family now. We protect family. This is our honor and our duty." The Comanche warriors spread out across the territory, using their superior knowledge of the land and tracking skills to locate the Apache raiders. Sarah rode to the church to inform the gathered settlers about the help that was coming. The reaction was mixed. Some were grateful for any protection, while others were uncomfortable with the idea of Comanche warriors fighting on their behalf. "It feels wrong," complained Jacob Morrison, a farmer who had been vocal in his criticism of Sarah's alliance. "Depending on savages to protect us from other savages." Thomas Henderson stood up to address the crowd. "Jacob, those savages are risking their lives to help us. Maybe it's time we stopped thinking in terms of us and them, and started thinking about what's right and what's wrong." The debate was interrupted by the sound of gunfire in the distance. The battle had begun. For the next 2 hours, the settlers huddled in the church, listening to the sounds of combat echoing across the plains. There were rifle shots, war cries in different languages, and the thunder of horses racing back and forth. As dawn broke, an exhausted but victorious Ayanna appeared at the church with news. "The Apache have been defeated. 3 are dead, the others have fled south. They will not return to this territory." The relief in the church was palpable. Families embraced and several people openly wept with gratitude. But the victory had come at a cost. 2 Comanche warriors had been wounded, though not seriously. Sarah immediately offered to tend to the injured men, using her medical knowledge to clean and bandage their wounds. As she worked, she was struck by how young they were, probably not much older than 20. They bore their injuries stoically, but she could see the pain in their eyes. "Thank you," she said to each warrior in what little Comanche she had learned from Ayanna. Their faces lit up with surprise and pleasure at hearing their own language from her lips. The successful defense against the Apache raiders marked a turning point in how the local settlers viewed Sarah's alliance with the Comanche. Even former critics like Jacob Morrison were forced to admit that the arrangement had saved lives. More importantly, it had demonstrated that cooperation between the 2 peoples was not only possible but beneficial. As the Comanche warriors prepared to leave, Chief Red Wolf himself arrived to assess the situation. He had heard about the battle and wanted to ensure that his new allies were safe. His presence drew curious stares from the settlers, many of whom had never seen a Comanche chief up close. Chief Red Wolf surveyed the scene with satisfaction. "It is good," he told Sarah. "Apache will think twice before returning to lands protected by both Comanche and white settlers." Word will spread among raiding parties that this territory is defended. Before leaving, the chief made an announcement that surprised everyone present. I declare this place to be neutral ground. Any who come here in peace will be welcomed. Any who come with violence will face warriors of two peoples united. The settlers watched in amazement as the Comanche party rode away. What had begun as Sarah's impulsive act of mercy in saving a drowning man had evolved into something much larger, a genuine alliance that offered hope for a more peaceful coexistence. That evening, as Sarah cleaned up the medical supplies she had used to treat the wounded warriors, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed. A month ago, she had been a lonely widow running a small trading post on the edge of civilization. Now she found herself at the center of an unprecedented partnership between two peoples who had been enemies for generations. The turquoise necklace around her throat caught the lamplight, reminding her of the ceremony that had formalized her adoption into Chief Red Wolf's family. She touched the carved bird pendant that Ayanna had given her after she rescued him, thinking about how that single act of compassion had set all these events in motion. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, she knew. There would be other tests of this fragile alliance, other opportunities to prove that cooperation was stronger than conflict. But tonight she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, hope for a better future. As autumn painted the Texas plains in brilliant colors, Sarah's trading post began to transform into something unprecedented on the frontier. Word of the neutral ground declaration had spread throughout the territory, attracting an unexpected variety of visitors. Mexican traders from the south brought silver jewelry and colorful textiles. French trappers descended from the north with fine furs and stories of distant lands. And increasingly, Comanche families came to trade horses, buffalo hides, and beautifully crafted items. The first time a Comanche woman entered Sarah's trading post, the tension was palpable. Morning Star, wife of one of Chief Red Wolf's sub-chiefs, arrived with two other women and several children. They carried bundles of expertly tanned deerskins and intricately beaded clothing to trade. Sarah welcomed them warmly, but she could see the uncertainty in their eyes. These women had probably never interacted peacefully with a white person before. Communication was challenging at first, relying on gestures, simple English words, and the few Comanche phrases Sarah had learned from Ayanna. But barriers began to fall when Morningstar's young daughter fell and scraped her knee on the wooden steps of the trading post. The child began crying, and without thinking, Sarah knelt down and gently cleaned the wound, applying a healing salve she had made from local plants. Morningstar watched intently as Sarah bandaged the small injury with tender care. When Sarah finished and smiled at the little girl, Morningstar spoke in halting English. "You help my daughter. Good medicine, woman." From that moment, a bond began to form between the women. Morningstar taught Sarah how to properly prepare buffalo hide for trading, while Sarah shared her knowledge of medicinal plants that grew in the area. Soon other Comanche women began visiting the trading post, bringing their children and creating an atmosphere of friendship that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. The men of both communities took longer to warm to each other, but gradual progress was made there too. Thomas Henderson proved to be a natural diplomat, learning basic Comanche phrases and showing genuine interest in their horsemanship techniques. In return, some of the younger Comanche warriors became fascinated with the settlers' farming methods and metalworking tools. Ayanna became a frequent visitor to the trading post, serving as an unofficial translator and cultural bridge. During one of these visits, he made an observation that would prove prophetic. "Sarah, what you have created here is something new. Not white world, not Comanche world, but place where both can meet safely. My father says the spirits smile on such places." But not everyone was pleased with these developments. As winter approached, Sarah began receiving unwelcome visitors from the territorial government. Captain William Hayes of the Texas Rangers arrived one cold November morning, with a small contingent of men, their faces stern and suspicious. "Mrs. Mitchell," Captain Hayes said as he dismounted, "I've come to investigate reports of illegal trading with hostile Indians." Sarah stood her ground, though her heart was pounding. "Captain Hayes, I'm not aware of any illegal activity. I run a legitimate trading post that serves all peaceful travelers. Ma'am, you've been seen consorting with known Comanche warriors. There are reports that you're harboring enemies of the state." "The only thing I'm harboring is hope for peace," Sarah replied firmly. Chief Red Wolf declared this neutral ground. "We've had no violence, no raids, no trouble of any kind since that declaration. Captain Hayes looked skeptical. Mrs. Mitchell, these are dangerous people. They've killed countless settlers, stolen livestock, burned homesteads. You can't trust them. With respect, Captain, I've seen more honor and integrity from Chief Red Wolf than from many white men I've known. His people have protected this community from Apache raiders and kept their word about peaceful trade. The captain's expression hardened. Mrs. Mitchell, I have authority to shut down this operation if I determine it poses a threat to public safety. Before Sarah could respond, the sound of approaching horses filled the air. To her amazement and growing concern, Chief Red Wolf himself appeared with a small group of warriors. He must have been watching the trading post and seen the rangers arrive. The chief dismounted slowly and walked toward the group with dignified bearing. Captain Hayes and his men tensed, hands moving instinctively toward their weapons. I am Red Wolf, the chief announced in clear English. I come in peace to speak with the soldier chief. Captain Hayes studied the imposing Comanche leader warily. I'm Captain Hayes, Texas Rangers. I'm here to investigate illegal trading activities. Chief Red Wolf's eyes flashed, but his voice remained calm. There is no illegal activity here. Sarah Mitchell is under protection of my tribe. This place is neutral ground declared before witnesses from both peoples. Chief, I don't recognize any such declaration. As far as the Republic of Texas is concerned, you're still hostile Indians who need to be controlled. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Sarah could see fingers moving toward triggers, and she knew that violence here would destroy everything she had worked to build. Gentlemen, she said loudly, stepping between the two leaders, we don't need to resolve the problems of two nations today. Captain Hayes, Chief Red Wolf has kept his word about peace in this area. There have been no raids, no violence, no problems since we began trading. Isn't that what everyone wants? Captain Hayes glanced around at the trading post, taking in the evidence of peaceful commerce. Bundles of buffalo hides, beadwork, metal tools, and other trade goods neatly arranged. Several settler families were there conducting business, including children playing together regardless of their heritage. Mrs. Mitchell, the captain said finally, I can't officially sanction what you're doing here, but I also can't deny that this area has been peaceful. I'll file a report stating that I found no evidence of illegal activity. Chief Red Wolf nodded approvingly. The soldier chief speaks with wisdom. Peace serves all people better than war. As the Rangers prepared to leave, Captain Hayes pulled Sarah aside. Ma'am, I hope you know what you're doing. If this goes wrong, if there's violence, the consequences will be severe. Captain, everything in life involves risk, but I'd rather risk everything for peace than accept the certainty of continued bloodshed. After both groups had departed, Sarah found herself alone at the trading post as evening settled over the plains. She walked among the displays of goods from different cultures, Comanche beadwork next to Mexican silver, settler-made tools beside French traps, buffalo robes alongside cotton fabric. This was her world now, a place where boundaries blurred and old enemies could become friends. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't without challenges, but it represented something precious, proof that people of different backgrounds could find common ground when they were willing to try. As she locked up for the night, Sarah noticed a new addition to her collection of gifts from Chief Red Wolf. Someone had left a small wooden carving on her counter, a bear and an eagle standing side by side. She didn't know who had made it, but the symbolism was clear. The bear represented strength and protection, while the eagle symbolized courage and vision soaring above earthly conflicts. Winter was coming, and with it new tests of the fragile peace she had helped create. But tonight, holding the carved figures in her hands, Sarah felt confident that they had built something strong enough to endure whatever challenges lay ahead. Spring arrived early that year, bringing with it the most severe test yet of the alliance Sarah had helped forge. Word came through Ayanna that a large war party of Kiowa warriors was moving through the territory, seeking revenge for a battle they had lost to the cavalry months earlier. Unlike the small Apache raiding party from the previous year, this was a serious military force of over 50 warriors, angry and looking for targets. The news spread quickly through both communities, creating fear and tension. Some settlers wanted to abandon their homesteads and flee east to safer territory. Others argued for organizing their own war party to meet the threat head-on. The Comanche were equally divided, with younger warriors eager to prove themselves in battle, while older members counseled caution. Sarah found herself at the center of heated discussions as both sides looked to her for leadership. The role of peacemaker was more difficult than she had ever imagined, requiring her to balance competing interests while trying to prevent the violence that could destroy everything they had built. The Kiowa are not like the Apache, Ayanna explained during an emergency meeting at the trading post. They are our cousins, people we have fought beside in the past, but they are also proud warriors who have been humiliated by the cavalry. Their anger burns hot. Thomas Henderson, representing the settler families, was blunt in his assessment. Ayanna, we appreciate your honesty, but that doesn't change our situation. If they attack our homesteads, people will die. Women and children will be killed or taken captive. Chief Red Wolf, who had come as soon as he heard the news, listened to both sides before speaking. The Kiowa leader is named Storm Crow. I have known him since we were boys. He is honorable but fierce, like a winter wind that cannot be turned aside. Is there any way to negotiate with him? Sarah asked. To convince him that attacking peaceful settlers won't solve his problems with the cavalry? The chief considered this carefully. Perhaps, but Stormcrow will not listen to words alone. He will need to see strength as well as wisdom. Over the next several days, an unprecedented alliance took shape. Comanche and settler scouts worked together to track the approaching Kiowa war party, sharing information and coordinating their efforts. Men who had viewed each other as enemies just months earlier now planned joint defensive strategies. Sarah's trading post became a command center for these preparations. Maps were spread across her dining table as leaders from both communities studied the terrain and planned their response. The sight of Chief Red Wolf and Thomas Henderson working side by side, communicating through a mixture of English, Spanish, and Comanche words supplemented by gestures, would have been unthinkable a year ago. The plan they developed was ambitious and risky. Rather than simply preparing for an attack, they would meet the Kiowa party under a flag of truce and attempt to negotiate. If talks failed, the combined force of Comanche warriors and armed settlers would be positioned to defend the territory. Sarah insisted on being part of the negotiating party, despite strong objections from both Chief Red Wolf and Thomas Henderson. This is too dangerous, the chief told her firmly. Stormcrow may not respect the safety of a woman in such matters. With respect, Chief Red Wolf, I'm not just any woman. I'm the one who created this alliance, and I'm the one the Kiowa will be most curious about. My presence might be exactly what's needed to get their attention. The meeting was set for a wide meadow halfway between the settlement and where the Kiowa war party was camped. Sarah rode out with Chief Red Wolf, Ayanna, Thomas Henderson, and a small group of representatives from both communities. Each carried a white flag to signal their peaceful intentions. Stormcrow proved to be as imposing as his reputation suggested. He was a tall, powerfully built man in his 40s, with fierce eyes and scars that spoke of many battles. He arrived with a dozen of his best warriors, all armed and painted for war. The two parties faced each other across the meadow while their leaders dismounted to talk. Stormcrow studied Sarah with obvious curiosity as Chief Red Wolf made the introductions and explained the purpose of the meeting. So you are the white woman who saved the life of Red Wolf's son, Stormcrow said in accented but clear English. I have heard this story told around many campfires. I am Sarah Mitchell, she replied, meeting his gaze steadily. And I understand you have grievances against the cavalry. But the people of this settlement had nothing to do with your losses. Stormcrow's expression hardened. All whites are the same. They take our land, kill our buffalo, break their promises. Why should these be different? Because they've proven they can be different, Sarah answered. Chief Red Wolf's people and my people have lived in peace for almost a year. We trade together. We've defended each other against common enemies. We've shown that another way is possible. The Kiowa leader looked skeptical. Words are easy, white woman. Show me proof of this great peace you claim. What happened next surprised everyone present. Ayanna stepped forward and spoke directly to Stormcrow in their shared language, his tone respectful but passionate. Though Sarah couldn't understand all the words, she could hear the conviction in his voice as he described the events of the past year. Other voices joined in. Chief Red Wolf spoke of the successful defense against the Apache raiders. Thomas Henderson, through Ayanna's translation, described how Comanche knowledge had helped the settlers survive a harsh winter drought. Even the children of both communities had contributed to the testimony, playing together during trading days in a display of innocent friendship that transcended racial boundaries. Stormcrow listened to it all with growing amazement. Finally, he held up his hand for silence and walked closer to Sarah. "White woman, what my cousins tell me is difficult to believe, but I see truth in their eyes. You have done something I thought impossible. You have made enemies into friends." "It wasn't easy," Sarah admitted. "There were many who doubted on both sides. But we found that we had more in common than we had differences. We all want safety for our families, prosperity for our children, and peace in our daily lives." The Kiowa leader was quiet for a long moment, studying the mixed group of negotiators. When he spoke again, his tone had changed from hostile to thoughtful. "Sarah Mitchell, I came here seeking enemies to fight, but I find only people seeking peace. This confuses my heart, but it also gives me hope." He paused, then continued, "I will not attack your settlement, but I ask something in return." "What do you ask?" "Let some of my wounded warriors rest here while they heal. Let my people see this peace you have created. Perhaps we too can learn from what you have built." The relief that swept through both negotiating parties was palpable. What had begun as preparation for war had ended in an expansion of the alliance. Over the following weeks, Kiowa families joined the Comanche and settlers in the neutral ground around Sarah's trading post. By summer, the area had become famous throughout the territory as a place where traditional enemies could meet safely. Travelers came from hundreds of miles away to witness this unprecedented experiment in cooperation. Some came as skeptics, others as hopeful observers, but all left with stories of what they had seen. Sarah's small trading post had grown into something resembling a small town, with people of different backgrounds living and working together. There were still tensions and misunderstandings, but they were resolved through discussion rather than violence. On a warm evening in late summer, Sarah stood on the porch of her expanded trading post, watching children from 3 different cultures playing together in the yard. Ayana approached and joined her, following her gaze to the scene of innocent friendship. "My father says the spirits are pleased with what grows here," he told her. "He says this place will be remembered long after we are all gone." Sarah touched the turquoise necklace she still wore, thinking back to that day when she had pulled a drowning man from quicksand without knowing who he was or what it would mean. A simple act of human compassion had grown into something far greater than she had ever imagined possible. "Sometimes the smallest seeds grow the tallest trees," she replied, smiling as she watched a Comanche girl teach a settler boy how to braid grass into rope, while a young Kiowa warrior showed them both how to whistle like a meadowlark. The future remained uncertain, as it always would on the frontier. But here, in this small corner of Texas, people had proven that understanding was possible, that enemies could become friends, and that peace was worth the effort it took to build and maintain. It was a lesson that would echo through generations, a testament to the power of one person's courage to change the world around them.